The first sign our quiet lake weekend was about to implode happened while my wife was brushing her teeth. I was half awake making coffee when her phone lit up with an urgent dispatch call. A dispatcher said, "We've received a 911 report claiming a woman named Rachel Merritt is unlawfully occupying a home at Lake Pine Estates. The complainant requests immediate removal." Rachel turned to me, toothpaste foaming. "Honey, apparently I'm illegally living in our own house." There was only one person unhinged enough to weaponize 911 like that, HOA President Karen. She had no idea she'd just tried to evict the head of the state police force. But to understand how we got there, you need to know what happened 3 days earlier. We bought the cabin last spring after Rachel's promotion. She needed peace, a break from the stress that came with running a statewide law enforcement agency. So we loaded groceries and fishing gear and headed to Lake Pine, expecting quiet. We didn't even unpack before trouble pulled into our driveway. A white Lexus easing like it owned the place. Out stepped Karen. Oversized sunglasses, perfume thick enough to stun wildlife, and a clipboard she held like a weapon. She marched around our cabin, scribbling notes, without so much as a hello. Rachel tried being friendly. "Hi there, can we help you?" Karen didn't look up. "We've had an authorized activity on this parcel. Are you renters?" "No, we own this place," Rachel said. Karen finally faced us, suspicious. "I don't recognize you." I stepped beside Rachel. "Dean and Rachel. We bought it in spring." "I'm the HOA president," she declared. "We require occupancy notices through the community portal." That portal was a barely functioning WordPress site held together by duct tape and outdated plugins, but Karen spoke of it like NASA mission control. When Rachel calmly explained we hadn't been told owners needed to register, Karen clicked her pen like a warning shot. "I don't see your name on the ownership record," she said. "That was because I'd bought the cabin under my LLC, my name only, purely for tax reasons." To Karen, it was ammunition. She handed Rachel a slip of paper printed in Comic Sans. "This is a warning. You must vacate until your residency is verified." Rachel glanced at it, handed it back. "No thanks. I don't take orders from you." Karen looked personally offended by the laws of nature. From that moment, she declared war. The next day, she cited us for natural debris accumulation, 3 pine cones. Then a note about excessive porch occupancy, Rachel drinking coffee. And 2 days later, a formal complaint accusing Rachel of unauthorized cohabitation, taped to our mailbox with packing tape and what looked like a lipstick seal. Rachel read it aloud, deadpan. "The unidentified female must depart within 48 hours. I laughed. "She didn't. She'll keep pushing," Rachel said. "She needs to feel powerful." And she was right. By the time she made the 911 call, we weren't surprised, just irritated. What we didn't know that morning was how spectacularly her plan would backfire. Because she hadn't tried to evict just anyone, she targeted Commander Rachel Merritt, head of the state police, a woman with a direct line to the governor. Karen had poked a dragon. When the patrol cars finally arrived, their lights flickering through the trees, 2 embarrassed officers approached like they weren't sure they were at the right cabin. Rachel opened the door in pajamas. "Good morning, gentlemen. Here to remove me from my own home." The younger officer blinked hard. We received a report of a trespass in progress. By you." Rachel calmly showed them our marriage certificate, the LLC listing her as co-executive, and photos of her unlocking the cabin. Then came the moment of recognition. "Commander Merritt," the officer asked. Rachel nodded. Both officers straightened instantly. She then showed them security footage. Karen creeping around our property, measuring our firewood, snooping on the porch, ample proof of trespassing and harassment. The officers offered to file charges. Rachel declined. "Not yet, but log every call involving this address." After they left, I said, "Well, that went better than expected." Rachel gave a thin smile. She thinks this is a power struggle. She has no idea what she just triggered. That night, we sat on the porch watching the sky fade blue over the lake. Peaceful, except Rachel kept staring at the road. "She's coming," she murmured. Minutes later, Karen's Lexus crawled past, slow and watchful. She didn't wave, Just stayed, gauging whether her 911 stun had scared Rachel. Did it? I asked. Rachel shook her head. No, but it told me something. She's escalating. She won't stop until something burns. So what do? We let her escalate, Rachel said. Let her climb. The higher she gets, the harder she falls. A chill ran through me. Not fear, but the realization that Rachel had already planned 10 steps ahead. This wasn't an HOA dispute anymore. This was a delusional woman challenging someone who held the full weight of the law. Karen had a clipboard. Rachel had the state. It was never going to be a fair fight. The next morning proved it. At 9:17 a.m., Karen's Lexus crawled by again. Rachel didn't even flinch. She's checking if the police took me away. Minutes later, Rachel showed me an email Karen sent the HOA board, accusations of threats, refusal of inspections, and even a blurry screenshot of Rachel jogging, labeled loitering in Comic Sans. By noon, another email arrived from the HOA treasurer, a special session to address possible violations. Rachel went alone. From the parking lot, I could hear Karen ranting about instability. Then Rachel spoke, calm, unshakable, and the room went silent. She laid out the facts, co-executive on the LLC, spouse of the owner, and, uncomfortably for Karen, the head of state law enforcement. If this HOA wants to take this to court, she said, I welcome it. Silence. Fear. Then nothing. When Rachel returned to the truck, she said, they're terrified of her, too scared to vote, too scared to stop her. They postponed it. The fight wasn't over. Karen was nowhere near finished. Postponed. I asked when Rachel returned from the HOA meeting. They want more documentation, she said, staring out the windshield. Really, they're just giving Karen more rope. You think she'll hang herself with it? No, Rachel said quietly. She'll try to drag me with her. She wasn't exaggerating. That evening, while we watched the sunset from the porch, my phone buzzed. Our insurance company called. Someone had anonymously reported our cabin as an illegal rental. Rachel forwarded proof of residency instantly, calm in a way that meant she was furious. Rachel's anger was never loud. It was methodical. The next morning, county zoning emailed, a septic inspection triggered by a noise complaint tied to possible utility misuse. Karen wasn't tossing pebbles anymore. She was throwing bricks. And then she crossed a line. Driving home from dinner Saturday night, everything looked normal, until we saw the front door cracked open. Rachel rushed inside. Nothing was stolen, but small details told the truth. A framed photo face down, a drawer half open, Rachel's off-duty badge slightly moved. A coat draped over a chair instead of on its hook. Not a robbery. A message. Rachel pulled out her phone, voice low and cold. Activate incident report. Code red. Intrusion with civil escalation suspected. The confirmation tone chirped. She turned to me. She crossed the line. The next morning, a drone hovered outside our second-floor window, black, silent, watching. Its red light blinked like an accusation. I pushed the curtain aside. It angled toward me. Rachel didn't look up. She sat at the table, calmly reviewing break-in footage. We've got a visitor, I said. She's documenting us, Rachel replied, sipping coffee. No, she's baiting us. She wants you to react. She's desperate, Rachel said, and desperate people get sloppy. She forwarded the break-in footage to multiple agencies as effortlessly as most people forward memes, then made one concise call. Yes, I'd like to open a formal investigation into an authorized access and harassment by an HOA member using stolen emergency credentials. Stolen emergency credentials. Karen had used the HOA's restricted master key to enter our home. The entire game shifted. Time to lay a trap, Rachel murmured. What Karen never understood was that Rachel didn't lash out. She planned. Every move was intentional. The morning after the drone incident, Rachel sat surrounded by documents and screens, studying footage from the break-in. She's escalating faster than I expected, Rachel said. The break-in, the drone, the insurance fraud, she thinks she's untouchable. A car door slammed outside. Karen marched toward our house, dragging behind her a young, terrified-looking lawyer with a briefcase too big for him. Rachel stood. "Let's do this." Karen pounded on the door. Rachel opened it with a smile that could disassemble a person's ego. "Tell her," Karen ordered the lawyer. I'm Stephen," he stammered. "The HOA is issuing a cease and desist for your unauthorized presence." Rachel raised a hand. He froze. "Stephen," she said softly, "I've filed multiple complaints with state agencies regarding Karen's behavior, criminal trespass, unlawful surveillance, and misuse of emergency keys." She nodded toward the drone controller clutched awkwardly in his hand. "Second, this property is outside HOA enforcement jurisdiction due to its LLC structure. I confirmed that this morning." Stephen's eyes widened. Karen's jaw locked. "And finally," Rachel said, stepping closer, "I'm Commander Rachel Merritt, Director of the state's Law Enforcement Division. Unless you have a court order, what you're holding is stationary pretending to be authority." Karen snapped. "Your position is irrelevant. You're a threat to community order." "Authority comes from law, Karen," Rachel said, "not clipboards." Then Rachel extended her hand. "The drone controller." Karen went pale. Slowly, she handed it over. Rachel powered it down with guillotine finality. Unauthorized surveillance device neutralized. Stephen looked ready to flee the state. Karen yanked him toward her Lexus and sped off. "Was that legal?" I asked. "Legal enough," Rachel said, "and satisfying." That evening, Rachel's phone rang. She checked the caller ID. "Judge Halford." My blood ran cold. Halford wasn't just a judge. He was an ally, a mentor, a poker night friend. Rachel answered. "Rachel," he said, irritated. "I have an emergency injunction on my desk requesting removal of an unstable, unregistered individual from a neighborhood." He paused. "It names you." Filed by Karen. Self-submitted. Unhinged. "Will it move forward?" Rachel asked. "Absolutely not," Halford said. "But Rachel, she's not being petty anymore. She's escalating into delusion." Rachel ended the call and stared at the moonlit lake. "She's cornered," she said, "and cornered people lash out." The next morning, 2 black SUVs rolled up the road, marked with the insignia of the State Ethics and Law Review Division. "The people you sent when government officials did something very, very wrong." "Commander Merritt," the lead investigator asked. "Yes." "We're initiating a formal inquiry into community leadership abuse, false filings, and misuse of enforcement powers by an HOA member." He handed her a document. "We'll be interviewing you and issuing notice to the HOA today." Karen wanted escalation. She had just invited the state's disciplinary equivalent of a nuclear strike. An hour later, our inbox lit up with panicked emails from board members, apologies, excuses, frantic attempts at self-preservation. Rachel ignored them all. "Time to let the system do what it should have done from the start," she said. The next 24 hours felt like the forest itself was holding its breath. Investigators reviewed footage, timelines, documents. By the end of the day, they had enough to issue a preliminary finding, probable misconduct by the HOA president. Karen's empire pettiness was already collapsing, and she had no idea. But fear is fuel for someone like Karen. That night, Rachel and I stood on the porch with tea in hand, finally tasting a hint of peace. Then we saw her. Karen's Lexus sat half a block away, engine running, headlights off, pointed directly at our cabin. She watched us from the dark interior, phone to her ear, panic tightening her face. "She's planning something," Rachel said. "Another complaint." Rachel shook her head. "Bigger." "So what do? "We let her," Rachel said. "The higher she climbs, the harder she falls." By morning, Karen unleashed a bureaucratic assault, a massive complaint accusing Rachel of refusing inspections, intimidating the HOA president, violating occupancy codes, and, my favorite, creating a hostile environmental presence. Another typo, another war cry. The HOA scrambled and called yet another emergency session. Rachel just sighed. "She's trying to bury me in paperwork." "Can she?" "For normal people, yes." Rachel smirked. "For me? No. She went alone again. Inside the clubhouse, chaos erupted until Rachel's voice cut through. I'm co-executive of the LLC on file with the Secretary of State. I manage the operational budget of the department that responds to your calls. If this HOA continues to misuse procedure to target lawful residents, I will file a state investigation before dinner. Silence. Terrified silence. When she returned, she buckled in and stared ahead. Well, I asked. They postponed everything again, she said, which means Karen will get worse. She was right. That night, our insurance was targeted again. The next day, zoning. And then came the break-in. Everything changed after that. Inside, nothing was stolen, just disturbed. A framed photo face down. A drawer half open. The drawer with Rachel's off-duty badge tugged out just enough to send a message. Rachel didn't speak. She lifted her phone and said, calm and sharp as a blade, activate incident report. Code red. Intrusion. Civil escalation suspected. Then to me, she crossed the line. The next morning, the retaliation arrived as a drone. It hovered 6 feet from our second-floor window, its red camera blinking like a tiny, malicious heartbeat. When I pulled the curtain back, it angled toward me, aware. She's documenting us. I said, no, Rachel replied, still reviewing the break-in footage. She's baiting us. If she gets a clip of me reacting, she'll weaponize it. Then, in a precise, unhurried way, Rachel escalated first. She forwarded the intrusion footage to multiple oversight boards, then called to open a formal investigation into misuse of HOA emergency keys. She wasn't angry. She was methodical. By noon, she'd filed 6 official complaints, each backed with evidence. Let's see how she handles being the defendant, she said. As if summoned, Karen reappeared, this time dragging along a trembling young lawyer carrying a cease and desist like it was radioactive. Karen jabbed a finger at Rachel. Tell her, she demanded. The lawyer stammered through his script until Rachel raised one hand. He froze. Stephen, she said quietly, do you know who I am? Karen jumped in. She's a non-compliant resident. Rachel ignored her. I'm Commander Rachel Merritt, Director of the State Police, and you're seconds from a disciplinary footnote. The lawyer wilted. Karen doubled down. She's a threat to this community. Rachel played the footage, the drone, the break-in, Karen snooping through our property. Stephen whispered, oh no, under his breath. Then Rachel extended her hand. The drone controller. Karen hesitated, but the ground had already shifted. She surrendered it. Rachel powered it off with a soft, final click. Unauthorized surveillance neutralized. Karen fled, dragging her lawyer behind her like a broken kite. When they were gone, I asked, was that legal? Legal enough, Rachel said. That evening, Judge Halford called. Someone had filed an emergency injunction to remove a potentially unstable individual, Rachel. Filed by Karen. It's absurd, Halford said. I'm rejecting it. But she's escalating. Rachel hung up, staring out at the moonlit trees. She's not trying to win. She's trying to survive. The next morning, 2 black SUVs arrived, state ethics investigators. They were the kind of officials who didn't show up unless someone had truly crossed a line. Commander Merritt, one said, we're initiating an inquiry into leadership abuse, false filings, and emergency service misuse by your HOA. Rachel smiled, cold, certain. I'll cooperate fully. By noon, the HOA board was melting down. Karen sent one email insisting it was all a misunderstanding. Rachel only shook her head. She thinks she still has authority. She doesn't realize it's already out of her hands. By evening, Karen was suspended. The board planned an emergency session without her. The air finally felt clear. But Rachel wasn't celebrating. People like Karen don't go quietly, she said. She was right. The retaliation resumed the next day, packages left without postage, each one unsettling. A bird feeder, gloves, seeds, junk, but chosen carefully, testing boundaries. Package 10 crossed a new line, forged accusations, fake financial docs, targeted threats. You're not the only target. Then a knock. Our neighbor Vince stood shaking, holding an email sent to his clients, accusing him of fraud with fabricated spreadsheets. She's expanding, Rachel said. Spreading fear. Vince asked, why me? You exist, Rachel answered. That's enough. Rachel called cybercrimes. Vince nearly collapsed with relief. Fear had isolated him until Rachel pulled him back to safety. That night, Rachel finally said it. She's gone feral. She's using fear now. How do you fight that? I asked. You take away the shadows. The next day, she gathered the community at the old boat dock. No titles, no agendas. Rachel laid out every fact. The break-in, drone, false filings, threats to Vince, weaponized complaints. No drama. Just truth. When she finished, the dock was silent. It's not enough to remove her, Rachel said. We have to rebuild something better. Not enforcers, guardians. By morning, a petition circulated to dismantle the HOA leadership structure entirely and rebuild it with real oversight. It passed. The board resigned. A new charter committee formed. Rachel refused to lead. I'm here to prevent, she said. For the first time, the neighborhood felt light. Then, before dawn, a thin envelope arrived. One line inside. I never left. Rachel slid it into an evidence sleeve. Minutes later, she pulled up statewide filings. 20 minutes away, a new HOA application had been submitted. 9 houses. 1 agent listed. Cassandra Aaron. Karen Cassandra Pinebrook. Rearranged. She wasn't escaping. She was restarting. And in that moment, I realized something cold. Karen didn't need power. She just needed a throne. When Rachel found the filing for the tiny 9-home development 20 minutes away, she didn't slam her laptop or swear. She just stared at the applicant name, Cassandra Arkeen, a rearranged identity, a recycled signature, a loophole wearing new clothes. Karen, she murmured, you clever, desperate little tyrant. I leaned over her shoulder. She's starting a new HOA. No, Rachel said. She's trying to build a new kingdom. She clicked her pen once, the sound that meant she'd stop reacting and started planning. If Karen had been anywhere near that cabin, the temperature around her would have dropped. Come on, Rachel said, gathering her files, tablet, and the heavy evidence binder. We're taking a drive. By sunset, we reached the unfinished cul-de-sac. Fresh foundations, half-framed houses, contractors hauling plywood through the fading light. And in the center stood Karen. Crisp blouse, pencil skirt, sunglasses, clipboard wielded like a weapon. Sharper than before. Harder. Rachel didn't get out. She just watched. Are you going to talk to her? I asked. No need. As if sensing us, Karen turned. She froze at the sight of Rachel, straightened her blouse, gripped her clipboard, pretended to study a blueprint. But her body told the truth. She knew she'd been seen. We drove home in silence. That night, Rachel filed an injunction not to punish Karen, but to force a fraud review on her new application, using the misconduct documented at Lake Pine Estates. If she wants a throne, Rachel said, stacking documents, she can build one, but not with poison. The next days unfolded like a chess game Karen didn't realize she'd already lost. The state cross-checked her filings. Her altered name flagged. Her past misconduct triggered automatic review. The system Rachel helped fortify kicked in. Funds froze. Title transfers halted. Leadership eligibility suspended. Karen wouldn't know why. She would only feel the world tighten around her. When the audit notice arrived, Rachel only nodded. Good. The system works when someone forces it to. Life at Lake Pine Estate settled. Oversight returned. Kids played outside again. Even Linda was finally watching birds instead of neighbors. Rachel refused leadership roles. She only helped rebuild safer bylaws, term limits, privacy protections. For a while, things felt whole. Then, months later, a small white envelope arrived. No stamp, no return address. Rachel opened it calmly. Inside, a photocopy of Karen's final denial, permanently barred from all governance roles. No note, no threat, just a door shut forever. How do you feel? I asked. Clean, Rachel said. like we stopped something before it spread. That night on the dock, the lake shimmered with moonlight. Rachel leaned against me. She won't try again. I asked. Not here, she said. People built on power alone collapse when it's taken away. For the first time in months, peace felt real. But trauma lingers. It surfaced one morning in the sharp scent of fresh pine. Too fresh, too close. A twig snapped in the tree line. Rachel shifted instinctively into commander mode, listening. Another snap. Nothing emerged. The unease stayed. Later that evening, cautious footsteps approached on the gravel road. Rachel tense, until Greg, the treasurer, appeared. He stood at the bottom of the steps, holding a clipboard like a confession. We failed you, he said. We let Karen run wild because we were afraid. We want to rebuild the right way. We need your help. Rachel studied him. I'll advise, she said, but I won't lead. That's not my role. Greg left relieved. An hour later, another knock, Vince, pale and shaking. An anonymous email accused him of reporting fake violations designed to turn neighbors against him. She's still going. I whispered. Rachel shook her head. This isn't Karen. It's someone trying to copy her. Someone hungry for the power she lost. Vince nearly crumbled. Rachel steadied him, documented everything, filed reports, and walked him home herself. She tried to replicate herself, Rachel said when she returned. Or someone tried to step into a shadow. This is why systems matter. A week passed in rebuilding. Rachel finished a new charter, term limits, transparency, multi-signature inspections, real oversight. She met with ethics investigators, helping draft statewide protections against leadership abuse. It wasn't revenge. It was prevention. A month later, a letter arrived from the State Licensing Commission. Rachel read it, then handed it to me. Karen Pinebrook, under any legal variation, was permanently banned statewide from any position of community authority. Not suspended. Not restricted. Banned. Rachel leaned back, tired but calm. People like her show us where the cracks are, she said. We just made sure they can't be used again. That night on the dock, the moon softened the water. Rachel rested against me, her shoulders finally at ease. She won't come back. I asked. No, not here, not anywhere with power. Because she's afraid. Rachel shook her head. Because there's nowhere left to hide. For the first time since the day Karen entered our lives, I felt truly safe, not because Karen was gone, but because Rachel had rebuilt something stronger. She rebuilt trust. And if there's a lesson in all of this, it's simple. People who abuse power expect fear. They never expect someone who refuses to bend. If you've ever faced an HOA nightmare, or a Karen in any form, share your story below. And if you've enjoyed this journey, subscribe. Justice isn't always loud. But here, it always arrives.